Location 5 to 9 in the Finder scale of Jeffery Martins scale of consciousness. Hello, this is Chris speaking. Wake up with another video about Jeffery Martins locations. There are already videos about location 1, 2, 3, 4 and now about location 5 to 9. Jeffery Martin writes that location 1 to 4 is one continuum, is one way, one path. I disagree, sorry Jeffrey, because there are many people who jump directly to location 3 in a religious context. Also, it is possible to go to location 1 and 2 and then from 2 to 4 without passing through 3. It is possible, of course, also to go 1, 2, 3, 4, but I think that's the rarest of those 3 possibilities. And when I say I think, then I mean that is my experience and that is what I have observed in many other colleagues on the path. Locations 1, 2 and 3 are often referred to as awakening on the internet and in literature, where location 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 are often referred to as enlightenment. Very few people go through the effort to try to find another name, something else than enlightenment, for locations 10 plus. Meher Baba calls it full enlightenment, I call it beyond enlightenment, and the other terms like spiral dynamics, third tier, and so on. Hawkins scale 700 plus. But that's for another video. Now let's talk about locations 5 plus. One of the most interesting things Jeffery Martin and his team found out about locations 5 to 9 is something that I've also observed. It is the illusion of finality, or the impression of finality. Many people on locations 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, they think that's it. They have reached the highest level of consciousness possible for human beings. All these levels, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, they are quantum leaps. It's already a quantum leap from 0 to 1 and from 1 to 2 and from 2 to 4 or from 0 to 3. But again, this happens again and again in location 5, in location 6, in location 7, in location 8, in location 9. It happens again and again. They're quantum leaps. It's the next location is as big as a change as all the locations before, which of course can lead to the assumption that this is it. There can not possibly be any higher state of consciousness because this is so vast, this is so new, this is so amazing. And this is especially true for locations 5 and 9. 5 because it's a new thing. Location 4 is kind of the beginning of enlightenment. Location 5, you're really fully into it. And location 9 is the upper spectrum of this 4 to 9, 5 to 9 continuum. So there, like in spiral dynamics, green and spiral dynamics, aubergine, you have the impression, okay, this must be it. There cannot be more. A very good example of location 9 is UG Krishnamurti. Also some neo-Advaita teachers who arrived there who say this is it. It's all just appearance. There is no reality and there certainly is no higher consciousness. In connection to that, another really weird thing is that often people who are in location 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 think that they have found the only way to reach a higher consciousness, that they're the only ones who ever got there, the first ones, and all the others are victims of a big misunderstanding and have no idea what they're talking about. According to Meher Baba, this is a clear sign that they have not reached full enlightenment. Because again, the mind has found a way in to make yourself special. Of course, you're not the only one. Thousands of people before you got there already. Another thing that starts changing in location 5+ is manas, the mind of perception. So it's very interesting to see that even in enlightenment, bullshit can creep in and does often creep in. This only stops in full enlightenment, location 10+. The next thing is that each of these locations is an extreme dissolving and reassembling to get rid of the last vestiges of the mind and the ego which cause bullshit like that. And this can really fuck up your usual life. These dissolvings and reassemblings, they take weeks or months or years, and often it's impossible to hold a job, for example, during this time. Which means either you go back to a previous location, or you really have to take some time out. And it can also mess with very basic levels of perception, thinking, memory, even bodily functions like heart functions, lung functions, and so on. Sleep and wake, a total reboot of the whole system that might even leave you lying around in a state of semi-consciousness for days in your flat or cave or wherever you live. This is why in countries where this has a very long tradition, like India, for example, you're usually part of some kind of monastic order of the Swamis or some ashram or so, or a monastery of Tibetan monks or whatever, where these things are taken care of by people who have already experienced it and know what to do. So obviously most of the people Jeffery Martin and his team interviewed were Westerners and told their story about what happened when they were by themselves and nobody didn't know what to do. So if you come to these kind of locations, look for some spiritual partner. That is my advice. Although I do know people who manage by themselves, it's maybe not the ideal form of going through this. The next thing that usually happens on location 5+ is cities, supernatural abilities, or the illusion that you have supernatural abilities. It's sometimes not very easy to tell those apart. So I recommend, if you have the impression you have cities, to really try them out. In a way, of course, that doesn't cause harm to others or to yourself. But really try it out if it works, or if it's just your imagination, if your ego is kicking back in. Then emotions can be a really important topic, either the total disappearance of emotions or the return of emotions in another mode. And then we come to the topic I've mentioned several times already, the path of humanity and the path of freedom. Usually on location 5+, people decide at some point if they walk the path of humanity and go and teach and share the experience and knowledge, or the path of freedom to really pull back and have no contact at all and don't share their experiences. This is also the answer to the questions, why all the secrets? It's a good point he opens here, Jeffery Martin. He says a question that is often asked is, why aren't there more videos of this type of thing? Well, this is mostly because many of those who experienced this chose the path of freedom. But it is also, it's not in the book, I'm saying this is also because you just have to go to countries where these traditions are still alive and why should some sadhu in India start making videos about it? If you're looking for this kind of experience and knowledge, just go to India and talk to those people. Not everyone is obsessed with becoming an influencer or even a book author. It's a living oral tradition mostly. On the other hand, there are videos about it. For example, the interviews with Yuji. So for me, one of the most important things to see here, to recapitulate, is that even up to location 9, the ego tries to creep back in. These last little vestiges that you've scrubbed off again and again and again, that you've dissolved and then rebuilt some sort of self or no self without these ego parts, still something is in there that wants to be special, that wants to say, I'm the only one, I'm the first one who got here. And even though it's absolutely absurd and ludicrous, whatever is left of the self is possibly believing it. Why? I have no idea. If you ever come to this point, just ignore it. You're not the first and you're not the only one. It's just some mindfuck again. It goes on and on and on. And this is exactly why I love Sri Aurobindo and Meher Baba and Bernadette Roberts so much. They describe these stages very clearly and very detailed and say, okay, if you get there, move on. This is not it. This is only half the way there. This is only half enlightenment. It's not full enlightenment. I had a chat last year with someone in location 9, and he was adamant there was nothing beyond that. There could not possibly anything beyond that. And if people like Sri Aurobindo and Meher Baba claimed this, then they were obviously wrong. That they were deluded to think there could be anything beyond that. Wishful thinking, because everything is just appearance, so there is no higher consciousness. There is no divine, there is no higher plan. There is no collective ascension of consciousness. There is no involution or evolution. But this is exactly the fallacy of Advaita and Neo-Advaita. If Advaita becomes a religion, then you get to this point and you will never move beyond it. It's the same as in Spaldamic's first tier. People who are in Spaldamic's first tier, they claim that there is no possibility of a second tier. There is nothing beyond technology and analytical thinking, which is of course total bullshit. But they believe it because that's their scope. That's their scale. That's what they can see. And it causes fear to think there's much, much more beyond that. That you have only tapped 1% or less of what's possible. And for some weird reason this happens again in second tier. This happens again in location 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. To think, okay, I have arrived, this is it. This is just again a distraction not to move on. Yeah, you've entered the subtle world or the vital world, how Sri Aurobindo calls it, and there are other traps. You're not anymore so susceptible to the traps of the gross world. The gross world, I call it gross world. But now you are susceptible to the traps of the subtle world. It's like Neo in the Matrix. When he wakes up in this new world, that's the subtle world. And at some point he realizes the subtle world is also an illusion. That's not reality yet. He has to find the source, the architect. And this is the mental world. The mental world is where you want to go, and to complete the journey through the mental world is called full enlightenment, or in Jeffery Martins' terms, locations 10 plus. And almost no one gets there. Yeah? Maybe 1% of all of humanity reached location 1. And 1% of those reach location 2. And 1% of those reach location 3 or 4. And 1% of those reach location 5. And 1% of those reach location 6. And so on and so on and so on. And in the end, almost no one is left. And there are maximum a handful of people in location 10 plus. And sometimes, in some eras, there's no one there. So in locations 10 plus, I might make another video about that. You might actually be the only one there right now, today. But you're never the only one who ever got there. You're not the first one to reach this. There have been many, many, many. The history of humanity and the history of seeking after truth and finding it is very old. It's not just a few thousand years. It's more like 100,000 years. So you can rest assured that this has been done already. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel. That is one of the reasons why I make these videos. Because you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to be alone. You can choose to be alone on the path, but you don't have to be. It is very important, in my view, to exchange experience with other seekers and finders. So that you're not locked into a new closed system, that you don't move from one illusion to another. And one of the easiest ways to do this, to really open your perception, open your mind, open your soul to different possibilities, that there are different possibilities to get there and to experience this, is to read the book, because there are so many interviews distilled together into a few pages, and you can see, okay, some people experience it like this, some like that. It's really very eye-opening, helpful and practical. It sounds theoretical, but it's very practical for those who are there and to need some input about parallel paths and realities. Thank you for listening. Thank you to all my Patreons. Thank you for liking and subscribing and joining me as a Patreon. Don't forget to hit the bell button so that you get notified about new videos. All the best and see you soon.